Hello everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for December 16th, 2019. I am Katney, and I am sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers, and it is designed to make getting started with hardware and programming super simple. We gather every week for this meeting to hear what's going on with our community, to talk about the state of the CircuitPython project, and to sync up and get a chance to hear about what everyone's up to. This meeting is held on Discord. If you are not already a member, you can join us at adafru.it/discord. We are there all week, and we're there in the chat. So if you ever have any questions or want to discuss something outside of this meeting, we're always available. But the meeting is held weekly, typically on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. If ever there is a change, we will post that to the CircuitPython channel. Changes are typically around US holidays. This meeting is recorded. So we record both the text channel, the CircuitPython text channel, and all of the audio. So if for whatever reason you don't want your voice recorded, you can post your updates to the channel and we will read them off. We have a notes document that goes along with the meeting, and you can feel free to add your status updates and hug reports to it before the meeting. Or if you're not going to be attending the meeting, you can also add your status updates and we will read them off while you're in order as we would normally, like you were there. CircuitPython development is sponsored by Adafruit, so please support them by purchasing hardware at adafruit.com. And as well, this is released on YouTube and also to podcast services. So if you are more interested in podcasts, check that out. And if you find that we are not available on your favorite podcast service, let us know and we will do what we can to fix it. This meeting is held in 5 parts. The first part is community news, which is a look at what's going on with Python on hardware in the community. It's sort of a preview of our newsletter, and it's just a chance to hear what's going on around the world with Python. The second section is State of CircuitPython in the Libraries, which is a statistical overview of the project. It gives us a chance to sort of see the health of the project outside of what it is we're actually up to. The next section is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance to call out people for doing something good. If it is held in a round robin format where I will start and we will go down the list alphabetically to give everybody an opportunity. If you are text only or lurking, let us know. If you are missing the meeting and you want us to read them off, you can add them to the notes, like I said, and we'll read them off alphabetically. The next section is status updates, which is a chance to talk about what you've been up to for the past week since the last meeting and what you're going to be up to for the next week until the next meeting. This is also held in a round robin format, so take a couple minutes and let us know what you're up to. And it's also an opportunity for other people to give you tips and tricks on something if you are running into issues and or need assistance. And if there's anything that is a more longer form discussion, we have our last section, which is In the Weeds. And that is where we have our longer discussions that don't really fit in status updates. Sometimes they will come out of status updates where we'll move something to In the Weeds. Other times we will have In the Weeds topics, which we already have one in the notes. So if you do have an In the Weeds topic, please post it to the chat or to the notes document during the meeting so that we are not sitting around waiting for a long period of time for that to happen. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Phil with community news.
All right, thank you, Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first up, I want to do a hug report for Cedargrove for always putting cool stuff up on the Twitters and the YouTubes and all that. I saw the PyPanel test and some of the stemma stuff that you're doing. So I know you're going to be, I think, talking about it later on in the chat, and I will watch it later because I have to go to a meeting right after this. But thanks for putting that stuff up there. That's really neat to see. I think there's some type of, you plug in a stemma and it'll be able to say which stem is plugged in. So anyways, cool stuff. So that's my hug report. 1,500, thanks to everybody out there. We hit 1,500 stars on GitHub. Kattni said the other day over email, she's like, hey, we're close. And I'm like, okay, cool. And you can see we have a new graphic because, celebrating. And then you can see we're like last year, January, when things kind of, went straight up like that. So thank you, everyone. You could see a lot of folks got involved over the last year. And one of the common things is people hit star. We also have some really nice forks, all that good stuff. Some hardware that's out there that I thought was kind of neat. It's making the rounds. This is CircuitBrains Deluxe. It's a CircuitPython castellated module package. So if you wanted to get like all the goodness of CircuitPython in that type of form factor, that's from Kevin. Serpente is back. Arturo is probably going to have some in our store as well, but they're also on Tindy right now. So you can see they have a new flavor. There's a male USB-C one, and they also did some castellation on the outside of the board there. Professor John is putting up a ton of courses. This is neat. If you're an educator, you could probably base your course off this, and he's a real professor. So that probably helps. There's slides, there's videos, and there's a Google Doc. And I put a link to the Google Doc, which has most of everything in there. Over the weekend, I saw that there are 30 million Raspberry Pis sold. We keep track of market share numbers. Some companies release them, some don't, but usually when there's a public release of some type of number, we'll keep track of it. And because we have a decade plus of blog posts, you can kind of see the rate in which. So we started all the way back in like 2013 when Raspberry Pi hit like the first million, now to 30 million. And one way to think about the Raspberry Pi, it's a very low cost way to get Blinka out there. And we have a huge amount of stuff going on circuitpython.org/Blinka. And okay, good. Summersoft. I had the same thing happen Summersoft last week, by the way. Live on the air, our fire alarm company was calling me. So anyways, for Raspberry Pi stuff, take a look at circuitpython.org/Blinka. And if you know anyone with a Raspberry Pi, a lot of times there's they sit in a drawer until there's a project. But now that CircuitPython and Blink has come along, you can do a lot more, especially with hardware interfaces with it. So it might be a good time to look at that free Raspberry Pi-ish that you got a long time ago. There is some slides and more from the CircuitPython talk at PyConf. And I think there's, yeah, I put the slides up there. This is at Hyderabad, and it's an introduction to hardware. And this is from Anweshas, I think that's the name. And take a look at that. So we're seeing more and more CircuitPython events, CircuitPython talks, and CircuitPython resources. And we don't even know about these, but folks tweet them and tag them, so we add them to the newsletter. Two more notes before I go. There's still more time if you want to enter the Hackaday and DigiKey Take Flight with Feather. There's 54 entries altogether, and they're all really good. And some of them will be made and manufactured here at Adafruit. And then I started to put together a whole bunch of stats, and I put it at the bottom of the doc because it would have pushed everything down. So the stats, I'm not going to put them in Discord because there's like a ton of them. But just to give you a sample, these are the type of stats that I'm going to do for the year-end newsletter. How many guides, how many pages of CircuitPython guides, number of products at Adafruit, number of forum posts, topics. So this just goes on and on and on and on and on. So if there's things that we didn't get in that list, drop me a note PT at Adafruit if you see anything interesting. Scott's probably going to be doing the CircuitPython 2020 article soon, but I kind of want to cover as many things as possible. We'll probably get really close to like, here's one of my favorite stats. How many boards we have, and if you look at it, there's more non-Adafruit boards in circuitpython.org/downloads. That means there's a lot of opportunities for people to put CircuitPython on different boards, and also people are making their own boards. So we're really pleased about that. So altogether with Blinka over 100, but we're getting really close with a number of standalone boards on downloads. And that is the community news.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, next up is the state of CircuitPython and the libraries. This is a statistical overview of the health of the project, sort of separated from what it is we're actually up to. This is a by the numbers look at what's been going on. We will talk about the project overall. Then we'll talk more specifically about the core and the libraries. And also we have a new section, which is the Blinka section. So let's see, we'll start with overall. Overall, and this covers both the core and the libraries, we have 30 pull requests merged by 12 authors. I don't believe I've ever seen GM Paris before, so thank you very much for that contribution. And 8 reviewers. We had 13 issues closed by 9 people and 5 closed by 3 people, or 5 opened by 3 people rather. So we are net down overall, which is excellent. And overall, we are pushing through doing beta releases of 5x. We recently did beta 1 with a number of fixes and features and all kinds of stuff going on there. And of course, promptly we found more issues, but that's the whole point. So we are working through those, and we'll be doing another release this week, ideally. In terms of the libraries, we are up over 200, which is amazing. And we are continuing to add them and continuing to improve. And as we always say, libraries are a great way to get started contributing. We have all kinds of pull requests and issues open that need attention, and if you are interested in getting started, we have guides. We're also available on Discord to help, and you can pretty easily find something to get started with contributing. And with that, I will turn it over to Scott to talk about the core.
Awesome. Thank you, Katney. Okay. On the core side, we had 15 pull requests merged, which is, I feel like a bit higher than we normally do. So great job, everybody. We had 6 authors. Sarfata is the newest author in the list, I believe. And we had 4 reviewers. So thanks to all those reviewers. We have 7 open pull requests, which is actually relatively low for us, which is great. A number of those are recently opened. If you want to see the full list, check out the note stock. Issues-wise, we had 5 closed issues by 4 people and 3 open by 2 people, so we're net down for a total of 204 open issues. And again, there's a link in the note stock to a list of all those issues. Most of them are assigned a milestone. We only have 4 that are not issued a milestone. This doesn't worry me too much because I feel like we're just wrapping up all of the feature work for 5.0, and then we'll really hit the issue list hard. So I would expect to see everything get assigned a milestone and really hammer down all of the bug fixes and any features that are left open there. So that will be more relevant in a few weeks. In the note stock, we have download stats. We have them split out by board and by language. Recommend people take a look at that if need be. The 410 is our latest stable, and we've had 22,513 downloads of that. I don't know how many weeks it's been out, but we certainly have. Yeah, that's a good idea, Jeff. Jeff suggests including a number of how many good first issues we've got. So 22,000 of 410, and it's been out a while, so that's nothing new. But 5.0 Beta 1 was released last week, and we've already had 656 downloads. It looks like, well, over half of those have been for the Circuit Playground Bluefruit at 399 downloads for that. So we're definitely directing people to 5.0 with the new BLE changes and stuff. So it's about time that we start to stabilize that. So working really hard to get everything in there, and then we'll stabilize it. So as Kattni said, we'll get a beta 2 out this week as well, because Jerry was nice enough to find some issues for us in beta 1, and they've been fixed. So before the holidays, hopefully tomorrow, but like by Wednesday, it would be good to get beta 2 out the door too. So that's where we're at on the core.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is the libraries. So this is across all of the CircuitPython libraries. We had 15 pull requests merged by 8 authors and 8 reviewers, which is always excellent. Having reviewing is a great way to contribute, and we can't complete the process without it. We have 36 open pull requests. Many of these are very old. We still need to go through and figure out what we want to do with some of those, whether they're still relevant, that sort of thing. We have 8 closed issues by 7 people and 2 open by 2 people, so we are net down for 128 open issues. If you want to see a list of all of those issues, they are aggregated at circuitpython.org/contributing. You can also find a list of all the open PRs and also a list of library infrastructure issues, which are us keeping track of making sure that our libraries are up to the standard that we set. All of those are ways to get started contributing to CircuitPython. And in terms of library updates in the last week, we had 1 new library, which was the MCP 4728, and 2 updated libraries rather. That is where we are with libraries. And with that, I will hand it over, if she's ready for it, hand it over to Melissa to talk about Blinka.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where's the... Okay. Let's see. This is my first time doing this. So, okay, for Blinka, we have 1 pull request that was merged by 1 author, 1 reviewer. That was Carter and Lady Ada as the reviewer. And we have 1 open pull request on there. And so we had a total of 1 closed issue by 1 person and 1 open by 1 person, with 23 remaining open issues.
Melissa, can you quickly explain what Blinka is?
Yes, Blinka is our CircuitPython library compatibility layer for the Raspberry Pi and other single board computers.
Excellent. All right. And that is the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. So next up is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is an opportunity to call people out for doing something good. We feel this doesn't happen enough, so we insist on doing it ourselves. We will do this in a round-robin format where I will start as an example and then continue down the list alphabetically. If you are lurking, we will skip over you. If you are text only, let us know and I will read it off. If you missed the meeting and put in notes, I will be reading those off as we go as well. And I think that about sums up Hug Reports. So I will go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, I want to give a Hug Report to Mr. Drummer 25. This is not a CircuitPython related Hug Report, for helping, this is a user on Discord, for helping another user named Doodle with learning HTML and CSS. I have been watching these two go back and forth for hours at a time, and I finally asked them if they knew each other before they started this epic learning session, and it turns out they did not. That Doodle just asked the question and Mr. Drummer 25 saw something that they could help with, and that's sort of why we created this community. And so it's really excellent to see that happening, and I wanted to call that out. Doodle is apparently trying to create a website of some sort, and Mr. Drummer 25 has helped making that happen. So that was really excellent to see. I want to give a hug report to Crayola for continuing work on the LED animations library, continued work on PixelBuff, and for sorting out why a library we were dealing with wasn't deploying to PyPI. Thank you to Carter and Thea for reviewing the initial PR to the LED animations library. Thanks to Scott and Dan for getting Beta 1 out the door in time for my guide. Another hug report for Dan for helping with updating the Circuit Playground library and for figuring out why the update was failing on the Circuit Playground Express. Thanks to Jeff for verifying an audio issue on the NRF boards and clarifying the situation so I could respond to a user-reported issue. And last, I want to give a hug report to Anwisha, who was mentioned in the community news for giving a presentation. There was some pretty serious negativity that happened around that presentation, and she has persevered through it. And I wanted to give her a hug report for that. So keep up the good work. And thank you for presenting on CircuitPython. And next up is Crayola.
So I wanted to give a hug report to Scott for helping sort out the subscript challenges, which are sort of the last piece needed to get the new PixelBuff API changes in place. So I hope we can get that merged soon. I just need to finish testing and looking at that. The next one was to Katney for helping get the Christmas tree wired up. My first try at putting the wires in was done upside down. Second time it was too far apart, so really needed her help there. And then to Jeff for the compressed Qster or whatever it was called that freed up enough flash that I could actually get a successful build.
All right, excellent. Next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello, let's see here. Okay, oh, I'm in the wrong section. Okay, I have a hug report for John Park for the fun collaboration that we did, and one for Phil Moyer for the great Sphero library discussion that we had, and one for Surfata for providing a better picture for the Surety board quickly, and a group hug.
Excellent. Next up is Sedacious.
Hello, sorry about that. Let's see, what was I up to? That's the wrong section. Oh God, pay attention, Brian. I want to give a group hug to everyone for being awesome, just because everyone's awesome. Also, I have 2 hug reports for Summersoft. The first for all his work in, generally speaking, just supporting everything we need to do to move to GitHub Actions, and then specifically for his work on getting the library bundle moved over to GitHub Actions. Looking at the PRs he put in and that were later merged, it was a big bunch of work that took lots of effort. So I appreciate that. I appreciate having someone like Summersoft in the community that helps out as much as he does. Secondly, I want to give a hug report, a second one, with a small frowny face / smiley face and a winky face to Summersoft for scooping me on adding the GitHub Actions stuff to the cookie cutter. I have a PR sitting on my desktop, or rather a push that I haven't pushed yet, and he scooped me on it, but that's great. It's nice seeing people pick up my slack. So thank you for that, and hug reports for everyone. Yay.
All right, thanks. Next up is Summersoft.
Hello. So I got a hug report to Sedacious, Scott, Justin Cooper on the website side, and then Katney for the reviews on Adabot and the CircuitPython .org PRs for those migrations to GitHub Actions that Sedacious was mentioning. There were a lot of them, and in off-duty hours, so I appreciate that over the weekend. then hug report to everybody, all the contributors that made Beta 1 possible. And then just a group hug. I will ditto Sedacious's everyone is awesome comment.
All right, thanks. Next up is Scott.
Hello. Okay, I just first wanted to echo the hug report to Summersoft for all of the work on the automation side of things. It's just awesome to see all of that automation get improved constantly, and like, oh, we want to add all these stats to the thing, and Summersoft's totally cool with that. So really, really, really appreciate you owning that stuff for sure. And then the other thing I wanted to say, hug reports wise, was I didn't put it in the notes, but first to Jerry for the finding the issues with Beta 1. I have a bad habit of only using it in debug mode, and I was actually not also using GCC 9. I am now, but I wasn't. So there were some pretty serious bugs that Jerry brought up after we had done the release. And then thanks to Dan for doing his Google foo and finding the two kind of issues on MicroPython that had included fixes for GCC 9. And then I took those and patched them, and they fixed the issues that we were seeing. So lastly, thanks to Damien George, who's the MicroPython guy, for finding those issues like months ago. It makes me want to really, like with CircuitPython 6, take the time to get us up to date with where MicroPython is. So I expect to see that with CircuitPython 6 as well. So thanks to Dan, Jerry, and Damien for the GCC 9 stuff.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have 2 people lurking, and then I have C. Grover, who is text only, so I will read that off. A hug report to Sedacious for giving great advice and allowing his ear to be bent multiple times. To the author David Beasley for giving me something to read so very late last night, Python Essential Reference 4th edition, a rich novel with many characters, twists and turns, and more than one plotline to follow. And to Kattni for helping with a stalled Cricket library merge. Charles Bernaford is lurking, and so next up is Dan.
Hello. So I want to echo what Scott said about thanking Jerry. Jerry's has been persistent in testing some longstanding bugs with the NRF file system, and I got to work on that, and didn't take very long to figure out what was going wrong. So I think we have that fixed now, and also the REPL issues with Beta 1, we didn't really see this problem where you would get an error only if there was an error in the REPL, and then it would do weird things. So that was the GCC 9 error that Scott was talking about. And then I'd like to thank Kattni, who keeps on trying things to do actual projects with the Beasley library and then finding out problems and saying, this doesn't work so well, and this failure case is a problem, and it makes us fix the library in various ways, which is very helpful. Okay.
All right. Dave P is lurking. Dishipu, are you also lurking, or are you here today? All right, lurking, excellent. So a couple more people lurking. So next up is Hair Effect.
This week, just group hug to everybody because you're great, and specifically a thank you to TAC for tackling a USB issue that came up for the STM32 last week really quickly, and helping us sync up between the two projects, use Tiny USB and CircuitPython, so we could get that problem out of the way really quickly. So, yep.
All right, great. Next up is Hukuza Tuna, who is text only, so I'll read that off. Thanks to Lady Ada for being patient with my botched issue creation, and to Melissa for taking the time to look at the display IO bug I reported. And let's see, Jason is lurking. So next up is Jeff.
Hello, everybody. I feel like I have a lot of Hug reports this week. To Scott and Dan for helpful reviews, including on a PR we decided to postpone, which had to do with some kind of NRF. No, I forget what it was. It's gone. And Scott for being pragmatic about another bug where we put in a Band-Aid fix and we'll come back and fix it right later. And thanks to Lamore and Phil for their testing, excitement and encouragement on the MP3 player I'm working on. Thanks to Anne for helping me toward making an Adafruit blog post, which will be my first one that will come up sometime soon. Thanks to Kevin Neubauer, who I just learned is living in Nebraska like me and doing cool CircuitPython stuff like the board that was linked in the community news. And he's also organizing some kind of hardware meetup in Omaha, so I hope to go to that soon. And hi, Summersoft. It seems like forever since we've chatted, so good to see you.
All right. Next up is Jerry.
Hi. Kattni, thanks for the NeoPixel Animator Guide. It's a great guide, and what a great project. I'm just having a blast with it. It's really fun. And following that, to Adafruit in general, the CPB, the Bluefruit, is a great platform. It really is an amazing piece of machinery to have out there in the wild now. And Dan and Scott, congratulations for Beta 1 and for that quick turnaround on fixing those nasty file system issues. All coming together.
All right. Thanks, Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Hug Reports. So next up is Status Updates. Status Updates is a chance for everyone to sync up on what they've been up to over the last week since the last meeting, and will be up to over the next week until the next meeting. So take a couple minutes, let us know what you've been up to, what you're going to be up to. This is going to be held in a round robin as well. I will start as same as with Hug Reports, and then I will go down the list alphabetically. I will read notes for people who are text only or are missing the meeting. And everyone who wants to will get a chance to give us an update. So with that, I will get started. So last week, I finished a couple of fritzing objects that needed to be done up. So now we have those for our new Stemma OLEDs. Got the new Pixel SPI library deployed to PyPI following a very weird issue. Weird in the sense that Carter and I couldn't figure it out, but thank you again to Crayola for sorting out the fact that it was just a permissions issue on the repo. Updated the MCP 9600 guide with Python usage. We had an issue with the way that write to then read from worked for I2C, and that was fixed about a week ago, and so we were finally able to move forward with updating that guide with Blinka and Python usage. I also verified that no other guides or updates were on hold for the same reason as the MCP 9600. Added the default files, which is to say the files that the PyPortal Titano ships with, to GitHub. I finished the Circuit Playground Bluefruit NeoPixel Animation and Color Remote Control Guide. This is a fun project that I've been working on over the past week or so, where one Circuit Playground Bluefruit acts as a remote control to another one, controlling animations and color on the NeoPixel LEDs and a couple of strips connected to them. And I blogged the updated and new guide releases. Started working on the Circuit Playground library update to have a board agnostic import mechanism that allows for single examples to work on both the Express and the Bluefruit. Found some issues there, but we now have a path forward for making that happen. I replied to an issue reported with the audio out guide code and the Circuit Playground Express product guide that turns out is a known issue using that code on Bluefruit. That's the NRF issue, the NRF audio issue that I mentioned in Hug Reports. And Regardless of the bug, I put in a PR to update the comment in the audio code to clarify what is meant by looping, as it references looping a sine wave sample, and the user that reported the issue on the Bluefruit seemed like it was possible that it was not just a bug, it was also confusion as to what the loop in audio.play actually does. So clarified that. This week is Library Monday. I need to, thanks to Jerry for pointing this out, I need to update the animation guide code to remove the, or not remove, but comment out the streaming color prints. When there's a gizmo attached to the Circuit Playground Bluefruit, it is constantly rendering the REPL on the display if there's nothing else being pushed to the display, and it slows down the code really significantly. So I'm going to comment those out and make them optional by default, so that way if people are using the guide with a gizmo attached to the Circuit Playground Bluefruit, it doesn't slow down the code to, the point of being unusable.
Hey, Kattni?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to follow up on it, it only is a problem too if it's not run from code.py.
Oh.
In other words, if you just have the gizmo on there and it's code.py, then it never starts up the display.
Oh, fair enough.
So in most cases, people would never see it, but if anyone ever does run it from the REPL, then it really bogs down.
Gotcha.
So,
well, it's a simple fix.
Yeah, no,
that won't,
I think it works great.
Yeah, it won't detract from anything, because the whole project is meant to be wireless anyway, so it's really unlikely that people are going to be connected to the REPL to watch those prints happen anyway.
Yep.
So then I will continue updating the Circuit Playground library and begin updating the examples to use the new import. I have a fritzing object to do, and then there's stuff that I got from my previous meeting that I didn't have a chance to update the notes with, which is the fritzing objects for the 2 new PyPortals. We're going to be updating the PyPortal guide to have the PyPortal Pint in it, and then creating a new guide for the PyPortal Titano, because I guess it is different enough that it warrants its own guide. And then once those 2 things are done, I am apparently going to be doing some motor projects. We have a ton of CircuitPython support for using motors with motor drivers, but apparently no code posted anywhere. So I will be doing some kind of projects using CircuitPython to show how to use motors with motor drivers, presumably so that we can put together a guide with that, but I'm not really sure what the specifics are on that yet, because that is after everything else. And that is my status update. So King North is lurking, so next up is Crayola.
So I had a busy week. Started with working. Where's my notes here? This has got long. So at the Christmas tree assembly, which led to working on more of the Adafruit Light animation library. Actually just finished working on a new animation and feature just now to do horizontal groups and vertical groups across the tree. So let's see, what else did I do? Yeah, I pushed that feature up just a few minutes ago and working on fixes to it. And then I did some testing on how to fix this obscure issue, which I believe Scott has a fix for, so I have to look at that. I also sent a PR in for a building.md, which addresses a sort of a frequent complaint of mine that I can't find the git commands I need. And other build commands, and I have to go searching through Learn or searching Google to find the commands. So it gives links to the critical documents on Learn, as well as for those people that are used to searching the code base for git commands. They can now find that if that PR gets approved, looking for feedback on that, for anything else we should include in the repo for helping people that look in the repo for build instructions. And then the last thing I have to do this week is try to get to the PyPixel buff so we have a complete solution, and that Blinka will happily run pixel buff code.
thanks very much. Next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello, let's see here. Okay, so last week I finished updating the CharliePlex guide, and then I wrote an Arduino e-ink breakout example for the image reader library. And then I also worked with John Park to put together an ANCS demo for his show. And I updated the PyBadger library to work really excellently with the external fonts now. This week I am going to work on porting a Python-based anime GIF player to PyTFT displays. That was one I'd worked on with the CharliePlex guide. And then I'm going to be updating some repos to point people to from the old bitmap code to the new e-ink breakout example, updating the Python your own adventure library to work with the PyPortal Titano, and starting on the HT16K33 library Python guide updates if there's time. And that's it.
All right, thanks. Next up is Sedacious.
Alrighty, so over the last week, I shipped the drivers for the ICM 2649, the LSM 60SOX, and Moore's MLX 9640 driver. I also published the CircuitPython driver for the MCP 4728 quad DAC. Furthermore, on that chip, I am putting the finishing touches on the Arduino driver. Just adding one or two last features before we ship it. What else? What did I do this week? In non-CircuitPython related things, I did some more work on my office this week and weekends, more reorganization, some light electrical work, moving things around, shuffling stuff and whatnot. Still trying to reorganize. This coming week, I'm going to be working on the tester code for the MCP for 4728. I'm going to also be bringing up a new sensor board, most likely, and starting on the drivers for that. Let's see. The LSM 60SOX should be coming out soon, so I am going to finish up the guide for that, so it's ready for release. And then back in office updates, this next week I'm going to be doing some light demo, removing things that no longer need to be here, that may be attached to the house, and then probably doing some painting and reorganizing or reshuffling furniture around and all kinds of fun stuff, and promptly losing everything that I need, I'm sure. And that's it for me. Oh, one last thing. Pro tip, if you have a lot of stuff to organize, buy a labeler. Specifically, I recommend the Brother labeler that I can't find in front of me, but it's amazing because, among other things, you can plug it into your computer and use it as a tiny printer and use their provided software to make custom labels and pull in a CSV file as a database and print out a bunch of similar labels for stuff. I use that to label a bunch of sensors I got from DigiKey, and it's been very, very useful. So I recommend it highly. And maybe I'll post a link in the chat if I find the model. That's it for me. Bye.
All right, excellent. Next up is Summersoft.
Hello again. So last week, as has been mentioned, so for Adabot, I migrated the daily jobs, so the one that does the bundle releases each day, and then the one that runs the various reports. Migrated those from Travis CI to GitHub Actions. And then I also started working on the Blinka stats for the daily report and these meeting notes. And I ran it this morning while I was getting ready for work, and had time to paste it into today's notes. But that hasn't been sent up yet. And then I also migrated CircuitPython.org's libraries and contributing information job from Travis to GitHub Actions. And then just an unrelated kind of note. So PhysiCI, the CI that I'm kind of building for Rosie, its first Azure billing cycle ended last week, and the invoice total was one whole penny. Now, granted, this is based only on the development activity I've had up until this point, but I don't think it's going to be 100 times more in use. So I think it'll still meet my goal of low cost to operate. I was shooting for under $1, and I think I'll get there. Under $1 a month, I should say. So for this next week, I'll finish. Plan on finishing the Blinka and stats info. I'm going to add a board count for the board supported both for the core and for Blinka to the report. And then probably going to get back into some PhysiCI work. I need to get the Azure framework finished, and then I get to go back to working on a Raspberry Pi and build out the new server and client for that. So that's where I'm at.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Next up is Scott.
All right. Hello. Last week we released beta 1. I then followed up with a couple bug fixes thanks to what Jerry found. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I did lots of reviews of awesome code, so keep the reviews coming. I enjoy doing them. Love to see new stuff get in there. My main kind of code work has been on Packet Buffer, which is a packet buffer, kind of like a sibling of characteristic buffer, but keeps track of like what at packets stuff comes in and out of. This is really useful for protocols that require you knowing kind of like how big the packets were originally. One of that is Beely HID, or not HID. Beely MIDI is that way, and the Apple Media Service is that way as well. So I am working on Apple Media Service. I thought it should be working, and it's not. So I'm going to take a bit more of a look at that this week. The main task for me, though, is kind of teaching the way to do all of this new BLE stuff. I've kind of been lazy in putting like new functionality into our core BLE repo, but that's not a great way to do it because it doesn't make it easy for other people to create their own repositories for different BLE devices. So kind of my main task this week is to split out the ones I've already done into separate repos as models for how people can add support for other things. I'm going to do that. And then I want to poke around with AMS just a little bit more. I don't want to get rat-holed too hard into getting it to work. But I do want to take a bit of a look today with some fresh eyes to see if I can't figure out why it's not working. And I want to kind of do BLE MIDI as well this week for that. I want to release beta 2 because we have some good bug fixes in there. And if there's anything on anybody's radar that needs to get into beta 2, please let me know. We'll probably do that tomorrow or Wednesday just to get it out earlier. I plan on turning into a bit of a pumpkin next week during the holidays. So like Monday, I have to make 2 apple pies for Christmas Eve the next day. So I will be a pumpkin next week, and I have it in the weeds thing about what our schedule will be starting next week. So we can talk about that there. And then the last thing on my radar is PyCon 2020's call for presentations closes on the 20th. So I don't know what that is, like Friday, something like that. So I've got to, shouldn't be too much work because I was quite excited about one of the things I applied to for PyCascades that I didn't get accepted. So I'll probably polish that up and apply for that at PyCon. That's kind of like a CircuitPython 101. So hardware stuff for software people, which should be good. And I might try to brainstorm some alternatives just to give them some options as well. So that's my week.
All right. Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
Scrolling. All right. So next is C. Grover, who is text only. Just a second, taking a time code, if I can type. All right, so last week, designed and tested a semi-automatic STEMMA device discovery scheme. Here's the process. A device catalog module containing a dictionary of device names, descriptions, and their individual import, instantiation, and test statements is created and then stored in the file system. A configuration discovery function imports the catalog and tries to establish a device instance. After walking through the device catalog, the discovery function shares a list of successfully attached devices. The scheme is useful but not universal, since it would be difficult to maintain and synchronize a large number of device definitions. However, it'll be a time saver for small projects that need a bit of STEMMA device flexibility, like my sensor testing robot platform. It may also be helpful when I forget a device's fussy instantiation parameters. And there are 2 links in the notes. And then PCBs oh my, simultaneously assembled and tested 4 PCBs. Although they were functional and useful, some improvement opportunities were discovered. 3 of the 4 were redesigned. Hurrah for Osh Park and Osh Stencils. Next week, write a blog or guide about the Robot Friend project and resultant PyPanel concept. Learned too much in the process of it to not take the time to document and share. Wrap up closed driver duct temperature visualization project. Start no more than 2 PCB assembly projects. And wrap up the panel enclosure design for the Euro VC0 and Workbench waveform generator projects and Laserum. Charles is lurking, so next up is Dan.
Okay, so I had a big PR, which Scott approved last week, which was to reorganize how internal flash was laid out and specified. So that's done. I fixed the an internal bug, a bug in NRF internal file systems, which are not on any of our boards, but are true on the NRF dongle and some other third-party boards that Jerry had been trying. And the problem was that a particular variable was not volatile. So especially after we switched to GCC 9, the compiler cleverly realized that since this variable wasn't volatile and it had been set to a certain value, that it could eliminate it completely from being checked in a loop. So there was an infinite loop there. But there was also a fundamental bug. And we mentioned the GCC 9 fixes. And the reason that I know about GCC 9 fixes is that I read all the bug reports and issues that go by on MicroPython. Not that I remember them in detail, but that I remember, oh yeah, somebody mentioned something about this, and then I can go look it up again. So skimming pays off. So this week I'm starting to work on BLE bonding, and this time it's for real. I know I've said that about 6 times, and it's always been for the precursor code, but this time I really am working on it. And it's true because I actually wrote some. Okay.
All right, excellent. We have some people lurking, so next up is Hair Effect.
This past week, I've been working on adding support for a board called the Meowbit for the STM32 port. The Meowbit is kind of like a Pi Gamer-ish little board that's got a lot of capability squeezed onto it. It's got the internal flash that we kind of expect for CircuitPython and full USB support, but also a built-in SD card reader, a screen, a buzzer, a bunch of buttons. So it's got quite a lot of functionality that I'm hoping to add, and it'll be a fun board when it's done. But unfortunately, it has some things that make it a little bit complicated. The first of which is that it's not totally open, so it doesn't have an available schematic. The kind of documentation about what pins are doing what kind of has to be derived out of their open bootloader code and open MicroPython fork. So that's ended up being a little bit hairy. I've gotten USB working and internal flash and everything going, but the screen is still being a little bit stubborn, and I have some questions about how we want to give people options for getting CircuitPython on there that I'd love to talk about in the weeds. a little bit, because they have their own custom bootloader that I haven't been able to get working with CircuitPython, which I was hoping to do, because that's going to be something that arrives on the Meow bit, on every Meow bit, and it would be really great if we could get to work with it. But unfortunately, again, like a lot of the stuff for this project, when it is open, is in Chinese, and I don't speak that much Chinese, so it's a little tricky. So if you know anything about bootloaders, or you know anything about STM32, then I would love to hear about it in the weeds section. Also worked on a USB issue that was impacting this and another CircuitPython board that's new. We got the new kind of generic STM32 board in called the Black Pill last week. Oh, well, it's not actually called the Black Pill. It just looks like the STM103 Black Pill, so that's been my name for it. It doesn't really have a name. It's one of these Alibaba Express kind of deals. But in any case, both of these boards were suffering from a USB issue related to not checking a line called VBus, and we fixed that in TinyUSB really quickly with the help of TAC, so thank you, TAC. So upcoming, I'm also kind of ordering a bunch of new STM32 boards to try and expand the number of things that we support with our STM32 port of CircuitPython. So I want to just put out kind of an open call. If anybody has a STM32 board that they would like to see supported, I would really love to hear about it. Right now we have, of course, the Feather. We're adding it for the Meow bit. We have a board called the PYB Nano V2 and MicroPython's Pi board. And then we have 3 discoveries, the F411, the F412, and the F405 is coming in. So if anybody has any others, MicroPython has kind of a starting list, but some of those were Kickstarter boards, so it's not super clear all the time whether they're worth supporting, because I know like the NetDuino isn't available anymore, and any board that's only available was only ever made available out of its Kickstarters is not something that we can support. So I'm really looking for some input here. So if anybody has any ideas for STM32 boards that they want to see supported, give me a shout out. That's pretty much it for me this week. Just going to be continuing to hack away at this magnet.
All right. Thanks. Next up is Hukuza Tuna, who is text only. Status, job hunting and reviewing issues for bits I can help with. Contemplating porting the Sphero Rover SDK to CircuitPython. Excellent. Okay. Next up is Jeff Epler.
Hi again. Last week I ironed out some MP3 playback issues, including the parsing or skipping of ID3 V2 tags, which let Lemore's sample MP3s play. And I worked on getting stereo playback to work on SAMD51 with the DAC. There were just some pointer bugs there. And I uploaded an initial version of this MP3 player app, which I guess we're calling JetPlayer, to GitHub, and I'll share the link there in just a second. I ran into some DNMA lockups on SAMD. It seems like when you're playing audio and you're running the screen, sometimes it will lock up. It seems to be waiting for the DMA to the display to get done. That's all the further that I've characterized it. And then this morning I ran into performance problems showing BMPs from the SD card on the Pygamer. It looks like it's specific to rotated LCDs. Don't know yet what we'll do there. So this week, I'm going to look at the NRF raw sample looping bug, which, because of this problem with the guide, the decision was made to escalate that in priority. So that's now my number 1. Subsequent to that, I've got a lot of stuff related to the JetPlayer. Still hoping to get my first Adafruit blog post scheduled. And let's face it, I'm probably not going to pick up the STM stuff until after the new year. This week will be a pretty normal week for me. Next week, I will be pretty light on the ground. My ongoing fun project is a 3D printed 10 keyless keyboard layout, so doing a lot of OpenSCAD to create a kind of configurable keyboard layout maker. And the top is done. the bottom needs to be designed, and that's got stuff like cutouts for where the USB will enter. And I need to find a microcontroller board. The matrix for a 10 keyless, it's easiest if you have 23 digital IOs. I'd also like to fit in that little OLED display and Bluetooth. So I'm thinking an NRF 52840 Feather plus a Seesaw board to get up to the IO count I need. Anyway, that's what I've been up to and what I will be up to. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Next up is Jerry.
Hello again. See, last week did some work on a PR to enhance the RFM69 and 9X libraries so that on a Raspberry Pi you can use interrupts for the receive packets. And actually, it was a nice idea, and it came from a GitHub user, Pythonaire, who's been really helpful in checking it out and trying to make it work better. And it's opened up a whole lot of ideas for using interrupts on the Pi now with some of the CircuitPython code. It's kind of fun. And yeah, then stumbled across these two little bugs or issues in the file systems on the NRF board. So glad to see that fixed. And it was kind of really mucking up the NRF dongle. But no, nice to have them back in service. And so next week, I've been thinking a lot more and trying to get back to doing a bunch of work on these, on the various radio modules, the 6.9 and the 9X. And one of the things I put in the code a long time ago was the ability to actually use the header, the radio head header, so you can do addressing. But we don't have any examples for it. So I really thought I'd try and concentrate this week on getting some examples out there for how to actually use that. And then in thinking about this whole thing with interrupts and there's still inherently, it's an unreliable transfer system the way we use it, because you can, there's a lot of dead time when if you're transmitting, you can't listen. And so you end up dropping packets. And so the Radiohead library has this, what they call a reliable datagram mode, where you basically acknowledge every packet and then there's a retransmission sequence. I've been thinking that, that might be useful to finally implement. So I'd be happy to take that on as a project, but I put out a couple of issues on each of the things just to see if anybody had any comments, either saying, "No, don't bother, that's just a waste of time," or if anybody really would like to see it. So that's the plan.
All right, excellent. And it turns out Drew is not lurking for status updates, so we're going to go back to Drew.
Yeah, just a quick one. So a while back, I added PWM support for Pocket Beagle. Now just raised the PR link out that all the different black, and that's it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And that is status updates. Next up is In the Weeds. In the Weeds is an opportunity for more long-form discussions about any questions that people have, things we want to talk about that are more involved than status updates, and that sort of thing. So we have a number of topics. If you have any topics and you haven't added them to the notes, please do so, or post them to the text chat, and we'll get it added and then go to you in order. And so first of all, I'm going to hand it over to Jerry.
Thanks. And this is just throw out there. I don't know if other people have run into it, but I noticed this morning I was playing around with the NeoPixel animator stuff, and I quickly managed to corrupt two different Bluefruits, and had to redo the whole file systems. It's been a while since I've run into that, and so it sort of reminded me of some of the earlier days and some of these things where that would happen. And so just a heads up, I don't know if something going on, or again, it might just be my handling. So, but I don't know if other people are running into those particular boards or anything else getting corrupted fairly easily.
I definitely didn't run into it in the entire time that I worked on the project, and I tested it on two different pairs.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to think it has anything to do with that project.
No,
So
no,
it may
I'm
have
just saying,
I'm sure
like,
it has something to do with the way I'm doing a lot of resetting of the things and stuff like that. So just again, if I can find it, if it's consistent, I'll work up an issue. But I just want to
Are you
toss it out there.
using your Mac as the base machine?
No, I'm using a Linux box.
Right. So yeah, so Kattni probably isn't having trouble because the Mac's really good about writing files immediately, and Linux is not.
Yeah,
Whenever
I'm
I
pretty good
copy,
about always doing syncs, but there may be
yeah,
times that I forget, or I just, and that seems to, it used to, I think it happens mostly when I'm updating code.py. But okay, again, so if it's persistent and I can, get it, I'll put an issue out there. But if it just, if other people start running into it, they might want to be aware too.
And my general impression is that flash writing, both or internal definitely, and I have a suspicion that the external flash writing is also slower. It shouldn't be necessarily the external one, but that's a possibility.
It's
Also.
slower on all NRFs.
On NRFs, yeah, the internal flash is definitely slower. You notice how much longer it takes to load a UF2.
Yeah. Probably,
yeah. But it shouldn't be true that the QSPI should be slower on the NRFs than the Atmels, but it's probably worth reviewing that code to see if we have some unnecessary delays in there or something.
Okay, and it's I'm getting used to reloading them now. The storage erase flash file system, it really is handy, so it works fast.
The internal file system is also twice as large as the SAMDs, right? Like it's a full meg, I think. But maybe we don't write it all.
I don't think the UF2 bootloader will only write the parts that it needs to.
Right.
So I don't think it's just I was looking up, like, to do, it's almost 1/10 of a second it's like 100 milliseconds to do a page erase or something. It's much worse than you'd think.
Is it still, is it because it's doing all the BLE stuff?
No, it's just like the actual data sheet.
Oh, it's just slower.
It's just slower. Like, I have that somewhere. I was amazed at how slow it was.
Yeah.
Well, I can't find it at the moment, but it was like to erase all flash is like a significant amount of time, and even to erase a single 4K flash page is a significant amount of time.
Yeah, Jerry, I'm glad you brought that up though, because I thought it was only internal flash that's been having problems on NRF, so it's good to get that on my radar.
Okay.
It's external flash as well.
Good.
So there was that pull request of mine, which we did merge for fixing hard crashes or hard faults during USB writes on NRF only. Maybe there's something else lurking there. There's one bit that I commented, this is kind of dubious because it was a hard crash trying to free GC memory while the GC wasn't active. And so is the content of that memory right at the time we were doing the last thing with it or not? I don't know. So I think it's entirely possible there's something still lurking there about writing, and it would just be general corruption to internal or external flash.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised either.
All right. Sounds good. Next in the weeds topic is Scott.
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on CircuitPython 2020. For those of you who are new to the project, basically we stole this idea from Rust, like all of our ideas. But we basically want everybody who's involved in CircuitPython to take some time around the new year to think about what's important for CircuitPython from their perspective in 2020. Or for the new year. So if you take a look, last year I did a post on the Adafruit blog on December 17th about CircuitPython 2019. I'm not planning on doing that before the holidays. My plan is to actually, hopefully on New Year's Day, do kind of like the call of like, hey, it's a new year, let's do this. And it'll be like 2 weeks for everybody to like publish their ideas, and we reblog all of the stuff that folks write. And then for that meeting 2 weeks ish into January. We'll kind of talk about it here in the weeds, and then I will write like a summary blog post about all of it. So I just wanted to give you a heads up, kind of informally, that like that's my plan for CircuitPython 2020. Would love to see you all write stuff come January for that. So just start thinking about it, put it in the back of your brain. Any feedback on how we did last year and what we could do better this year is welcome as well.
Okay, excellent.
Just a quick question, Scott. Is the best way for us to submit stuff like that? Is it best to like make your own blog posts and then that would be linked, or what's kind of the format that you like to see for that?
If you have an Adafruit blog account, it can just go there. If you don't, we had some people just do like gists like on GitHub that we linked to because they like folks didn't have a blog of their own. So like it really can be any place. Just let us know where it is and we'll link to it. Just like anywhere publicly accessible on the internet is kind of it.
Basically,
and if you
whatever's
look,
easiest for you.
yeah. And I think it's pretty easy if we just look on the blog to just do CircuitPython 2019 and.
I think last year I did it on my personal blog and linked to it in the CircuitPython meeting.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at doing it on my personal blog, so
I might have sent a private message to you, Scott. I can't remember.
Right. So yeah, you can see here all the different folks that did it, but I do want to push it pretty hard at the start of January to get everybody's thoughts on it. I don't think it's worth trying to do that push before the holidays, though. I'm just kind of giving a heads up that that'll be different this year.
Okay. Next up in the weeds, we have a topic from Hair Effect.
Okay. Trying to try to not take too much time since we're a little bit over here. But just wanted to retouch on the issue with the meow bit. Basically, someone else's bootloader running on this thing, and not really great options for loading CircuitPython onto it ourselves because it doesn't actually have a port for JTAG or SWD, and it doesn't have accessible settings on the boot pins. So all in all, it would be really great if we could get it running with their bootloader. And I was just, if anybody who's still here on the chat actually worked with the Meowbit before?
Crickets.
Okay, well, so I guess just Scott, do you think that this is something that's worth spending time on, or is it just something that should?
I think document the way that you've been testing it, and then let's rope Phil into this and see if he can't reach out to them and get an answer from them.
Okay, that sounds great to me. Yeah,
like some info on how their bootloader works or whatever would be awesome. The other thing we've done, and we did this for the particle boards, is we actually like taught people how to replace the bootloader with UF2. But that's kind of like a bit more drastic.
Yeah, I tried. The issue right now is that they have a bootloader, like a custom bootloader. It's not the STM32 bootloader.
Right.
And so I tried repositioning CircuitPython's flash settings in the linker file to be able to generate a UF2 that could work with theirs, and it just wasn't loading. Like I couldn't get any feedback. That's what I was wondering if anybody had worked with it before, if they had experience trying to like flash MicroPython into it or something, because they do that, but their MicroPython port is like it's a fork of MicroPython where they went in and changed all the linker files individually.
Right.
Like,
yeah, that doesn't
just for their board. Yeah. So
we were not the first fork of MicroPython. We were just the first to rename it.
I would say it's not ultimately our responsibility. I mean, it's nice that we can do the work, but if they want CircuitPython on the board, I think it would be nice for them to spend some time on it as opposed to us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't mean to do this as like an outreach thing. It's just that getting code onto this device without using their bootloader would be a pretty big hurdle for people, because it doesn't even have, it has SWD pads and they're not labeled and they're not documented. I had to figure out which ones they were with a multimeter and then solder a pin header onto the side. And now it won't even fit in the case anymore. Like this is not accessible Flash. So I think it's a really cool board.
right? So
yeah, I mean, we carry it. It's a really cool board. It's got lots of features. I think it would actually be a really fun thing to support. But if we want to support it, I think it's going to take. We would really want to solve this issue for sure.
Yeah,
So we want to use it.
I would say that. So let me ask this. I haven't used it. I don't know anything about it. How is the firmware updated currently?
So when you, the way I'm uploading or the way they do it?
Well, I guess let me rephrase. Do you use a UF2 or not?
I am not using. I am using SWD to upload binaries directly using the SWD pads that they did not document.
Okay,
so that's how I'm getting code onto the board. I've
been under the impression that that was our new, we'll call it line in the sand, goalpost, whatever. You know, we dropped support for the NRF 52832. We dropped support for the ESPs because they didn't have onboard USB, and you couldn't burn them with the UF2 bootloader. So,
can you say that again? I got mildly distracted by making Melissa's post.
No, sorry. So it was it's been my understanding that our line in the sand has been that if it doesn't support UF2 bootloader and it doesn't have, you know, onboard USB, which obviously this probably does, but
it does,
but not the UF2 bootloader part, that we weren't going to include it in the.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it does
boards.
have a UF2 bootloader. It's just not our UF2 bootloader.
Oh, okay. All right.
One of those. We just need to figure out how to make CircuitPython work with it. And
okay.
I've been in there. I tried like changing the CircuitPython linker settings. I mean, it's a nice bootloader and it shows up on the screen and everything. It's a cute little bootloader that does not work with our UF2s right now. So figuring out that it's full of magic. It's not documented. What documentation is there is in Chinese. So it would be super if we could get them to do it. So I think that's a reasonable path forward here.
So the reconfiguration stuff that I've been doing, I haven't done it for STM yet, but where the different things are in memory, in Flash, when I make that happen on STM, it might be a lot easier to create a bin or a bootloader a UF2 that is in the right place. It sounds like that's the main problem. It's in the right place or something. So,
well, I mean, you can't. There are some complications with the bootloader on the STM32 because a lot of people if they have a custom bootloader. It's confusing when you're talking about bootloaders on the STM32 because STM32 has a built-in bootloader, which you can activate. This isn't one of those. This is a custom bootloader that's in the beginning of Flash, and that's a little bit complicated too because when you put it in the beginning of Flash, I'm still not totally sure how that works with vector tables. I haven't done enough bootloader work to be familiar with how it handles like vector table placement, but I know it disables internal Flash, so you can't, because we need the beginning of Flash if we're going to have an internal Flash file system. So that's a little bit complicated.
Okay, so I will look at. I mean, I'll look at this a little bit when I start porting over. When I start doing the Flash layout stuff for STM32, which I already did for Atmel and NRF, because maybe that will.
I still need to look at your work on that because there's a lot of internal Flash file system improvements that I need to make for STM32. Need to revisit that.
Okay.
For sure, it hasn't been a priority because all the kind of mainline chips have external Flash, but that's on my to-do list. Anyway, sorry, Scott, what's the next step on this? Reach out to.
Yeah, let's just send an email to me and I can forward it or whatever. Like the make code people probably have experience with it as well, so they may be able to help too. Okay. They may know where the bootloader actually is and all that.
None of this is an obstacle for me adding support in the short term. It's just like if we want to give, Adafruit customers a way to upload this, we'll want to get that done.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. Don't let it hang you up. Like keep working on a bunch of different boards and stuff.
Cool.
We can always make it better later.
Yeah. I think the next in the weeds is also me, which I feel bad because we're dragging over. But yeah, just another quick question for you, Scott. It's getting to the point with STM32 where I'm starting to run into some kind of serious hairiness with the boards versus MCU distinction, which is not really as big an issue for the NRF or ML because you guys have kind of a restricted package set, it seems like.
Well,
it's a much bigger deal. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's we just leverage what the HAL gives us. I think is how we manage it. Like we just tell the HAL like this is our exact SKU, and it tells us like, oh, these pins exist, these pins don't exist.
Yeah, and I unfortunately I don't have a kind of an out and out full pin definition set in my HAL that I can use. So I was just wondering, right now I've got like this kind of huge ugly conditional in the common HAL microcontroller in it. I was just wondering if you had I was thinking about refactoring that into an actual like MCU folder or something like in boards, or like trying to put that somewhere else so that it's a little bit clearer just what layouts have what pins.
I think I think if it's already factored out into Common HAL, it's fine. The thing that I would be wary for is if you find yourself copying files between board defs a lot, it may be a time for you to like split out and just have like some common files that get shared across boards.
I actually mean that I kind of have the opposite problem where I have all of the pin defs in this one init.c, like all of the labels for the pins right now are in microcontroller init.c, and I have a ton of if MCU packages like over 100, if it's under 100, if it's equal to 144, include pins. Like it's and it's getting to be kind of a mess and not very flexible.
Why do you say it's a mess?
Just because going in and changing it per MCU is getting a little bit annoying. Just because I guess I could just rethink the way that I do it, just like use kind of the MicroPython style, like if equal to any one of these boards and any one of these layouts. Maybe I just need to make it more comprehensive, but just keep it where it is.
I think it's just a lot of info, and as long as it's understandable how it's structured, I think it's fine. Like I said, what would be a bigger red flag for me is if stuff is being duplicated a bunch. But if it's just some complexity that's isolated to a single file, but it's consistent complexity in the sense of like, if doing conditionals based on pin size, like number of pins on a package, like that. That seems fine to me. So I wouldn't get too far ahead of that. But if you find like, oh, I need to add this specific thing, and like suddenly you're like, for every if you're having to do another condition on it, like that might be the point to rethink it.
I guess like just an example would be like this PB11 thing where it's like if the MCU package is on the 405 but it's not the 144 but it is one of these other three packages, then you include this pin, right? Like it doesn't make a lot of, the conditional by itself doesn't make a lot of sense, I guess. And every time I add a new thing, I have to work it into that conditional somehow.
Right. Yeah, sometimes what can happen is that it's better to be positive about what the conditional is rather than negative. So like it's these 5 cases where this is true versus like this case except for that case. Like,
well, this is good feedback. It sounds like it's better to keep all the complexity in one place rather than doing a duplication, which probably would be the alternative. So I'll take that to heart and refactor my conditionals.
Yeah, and feel free to snag me on it and be like, this is one that I feel is like super messy. Do you have any suggestions? We can do it on kind of a like condition by condition basis.
Sounds good. Sorry for the extra time here.
No worries. I've got a topic too.
All right. Speaking of which, next up is Scott.
Yeah. So, lastly, I wanted to just get a feeling for folks' holiday meeting schedule. Next week is full of holidays, and the week after is New Year's. And typically, I think what we've done is we've actually kind of missed our regular Mondays, and we've just picked one between Christmas and New Year's is the way to do it. So I want to get folks' feedback, but basically, what we would do is we'd skip the next 2 Mondays, which are the 23rd and the 30th, and we could do like the 27th, which is the Friday between Christmas and New Year's. And then we would start back on our regular Mondays on the 6th of January. So, what do folks think?
I might be gone on the 27th. Or
Okay.
we might have a staycation, but we were talking about not doing work.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna try not to work next week at all either, but so we could just skip 2 weeks, but I think in the past we've thought that that's like kind of a bit much.
I think maybe this time with everything falling exactly on Tuesday and Wednesday, it kind of, I think, just messes a lot of things up. I think in this case, maybe just skip it.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah, skipping sounds good to me too.
I'll have updates, but probably like between the 2 weeks, it won't be like 2 weeks worth of updates in the normal case.
Right. So
I was gonna say,
if we just skip it, we're just I'm gonna try to at least keep up with Discord, because I think one thing we find is that like the folks that aren't paid to do this actually do a lot over the holidays. So I am gonna try to kind of keep up with that stuff, but I'm not gonna do anything myself. I actually want to do the game. I want to do Game Boy stuff. That's what I want to do.
Do you think it would it make any sense to have like a notes only doc that
what
just
I was getting
post?
at.
That seems like a reasonable compromise. Just have
So
the
we
Google
could
Doc.
create the notes and have them posted for the week and let people put their notes in and then post it to the repo. And
when would we want to do that?
How about we do that on the 27th?
And that way it goes out on the last newsletter of the year.
Yeah. I think that would work.
All right. That works for me.
All right.
Yeah, I think all of the Adafruit or the Asking Engineers and Show and Tells are on schedule. Phil and Lamore are going to do those on Christmas and on New Year's still. So our next voice meeting will be 3 weeks from now.
Sounds good. I would still create the notes doc, obviously a few days in advance, and then we'll let people do their thing.
All right. That works for me.
All right.
Can I ask one final in the weeds question before we go?
Yeah.
And that is, does the fix you put in when you do the release of beta 2, I think that has the fixes in, will that break all non-express boards to wipe out their file systems?
Only maybe on NRF.
Only maybe NRFs. Okay, I can remember.
Yeah,
okay.
I tried to make it's a little bit tricky because there are some third-party boards that have some very non-standard settings, probably unintentionally. And
so I assume you'll put a warning in the
oh
release.
yeah,
Just want to make it
bold caps, right?
Okay. So what would you expect to see though is any of the only on the NRF, so the non-express boards basically get a clean slate when you upload, which is fine.
That will happen, right?
Okay.
Because
but you don't expect it on the
we would not damage, even though we'd like to move the file system on the Atmel boards, there are too many out there.
Okay.
And it's not that big a deal. So, but it's just some of the third-party boards like unintentionally said like no NVM or an odd NVM size or something, and maybe I undid a couple of those, but I don't think so. but I would just tell people to be careful. I tried not to, but
Well, people have to always be able to accept a corrupted file system, so it's a good test.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just need to back up their stuff before updating.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
All right. This has been an epic meeting, and I think we are ready to wrap up. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for December 16th, 2019. We will get this posted to YouTube and as well as podcasts. So if you're listening to this later, thanks for sticking around. And other than that, I want to thank everybody for participating. Again, if you want to join us on Discord, either for this meeting or anytime during the week, feel free to do so. At adafru.it/discord. We are around during the week as well, not during the meetings. So thanks again to everybody that participated, as this will be our last meeting before the holidays. I hope everyone has an excellent holiday. Again, our next meeting will be a notes-only edition on the 27th of December. And then following that, the next regular voice meeting will be on the 6th of January. And we will post that information to the CircuitPython channel as well. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful holiday.
Bye.
Later. Have a good holiday, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.